you
And
know.
you're getting rid of the mechanics too, because you're using easy energy to push it through versus using mechanical pressure like pumps and other stuff possibly.
Exactly. So imagine we take ocean water and we put the ocean water here, and the salt and other debris gets pushed to the center, and the salt gets dumped, and we pull off from that salt-free water. Water has not the three phases that we've learned: ice, water, vapor, but four phases. This is the fourth phase. We call it EZ water. The water is absorbing infrared energy all the time and doing interesting things as it gets absorbed. And I presented some. And one is in the biological situation. So I would predict that in the future, if atmospheric scientists take into account electrical charge, they can understand more about weather.
Are we able to desalinate salt water with EZ practices? If so, could this change the agricultural game worldwide? In this video, we're going to get into it. You're here with Jared Pollack and Mark Bowell on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't checked us out on Instagram and Facebook, make sure to do so. Don't forget about our $2.99 membership, because we have over 115 growers ready and willing to assist you through your growing practices. Let's go and get into the video, guys.
Make sure to hit the join button on the bottom of every video.
And the other one is getting drinking water from contaminated water. The heart of this device is shown here. And the idea is, this is a very simple device. It looks complicated, but it's really simple. You have flow, and the flow consists of water and junk that you want to get rid of. It could be pharmaceuticals that we find in the water. It could be microplastics. It could be, any kind of junk that you would expect in the water. And so it goes into, say, a Nafion tube. It doesn't have to be Nafion. It could be anything that grows exclusion zones. And so you can see that the exclusion zone grows here, and it grows here, just as I've shown you. And all the junk gets pushed to the center. So we want to get rid of the junk. And so we developed this so-called differential extractor. And this extractor, what it does is it's just two concentric tubes, and the central one collects the junk and dumps it.
It's brilliant because it's pushing all the junk to the center because of the EZ zone, and all the clean waters, you're scraping it off the top or the sides.
Exactly. It comes through here, and there's no physical filter.
It's brilliant.
Well, thank you.
And you're getting rid of the mechanics too, because you're using easy energy to push it through versus using mechanical pressure like pumps and other stuff possibly.
Exactly. Yeah, it has many advantages, and the energy for this is coming from the sun, because it's separating this zone from this zone. And by the way, there's a byproduct, because the water that comes out of here is EZ water, and so it's good for health. So every advantage of this, and we did spend some time developing it. And the problem is, it looks simple, and we've been able to demonstrate in our laboratory, in one single pass, we can separate these to a ratio of junk particles. We use microspheres as although we've used bacteria, viruses, and such. With microspheres as sample junk, we're able to get a 200 to 1 separation in one single pass. So it can work beautifully, but there are some hitches, and we spent some time studying those hitches. We think we can solve them, but for this we need more fundamental studies, a little bit more time and such. And so yeah, any support that could come to our laboratory would be wonderful, because this is a giant problem that we're all facing. We're all getting sicker. Water is getting more and more polluted. We need to do something about this. It's getting worse and worse, and we're getting less and less becoming less and less healthy. So this is important. The grand prize, I think, comes from that we see on the horizon is separating salt. And we think we have some evidence that salt can be separated in the same way as I've shown you here. So imagine we take ocean water, and we put the ocean water here, and the salt and other debris gets pushed to the center, and the salt gets dumped, maybe in the great salt flats in Utah or the Dead Sea or something like that. And we pull off from that salt-free water. So, and the energy for doing that comes from the sun.
So desalinization is what you're discussing right now.
Exactly.
In a way cheaper manner than what they're doing it. Wow.
This has, the breakthrough potential of this.
That's huge breakthrough potential. I gotta talk to my buddy Stan that has Saudi Arabia connections, and just show him this and just say, hey, can you just show this to one of your guys if you're ever in a meeting?
We've been talking now for 2 3/4 hours.
I'll pull a snippet out of it.
Well, there are other lectures on the web that you can find that are a little bit shorter. In fact, there was one that was presented in United Arab Emirates, and it's only 25 minutes. It was presented at the Palace of the Crown Prince, or 30 minutes. And if you get hold of that one, although I'm told that UAE and Saudi Arabia are kind of rivals, but at any rate, so please, if that's possible, we need money to study this first in the laboratory and then in practical considerations, because there are a few issues that we need to resolve before this can become a reality. It's not going to happen in 6 months, but it's going to happen, I think. So we have a whole lot of applications here, potential applications. We can't be sure that they're going to come to fruition, but I think there's a good chance that they might. So conclusions, I guess the main sort of scientific conclusion is that water has not the 3 phases that we've learned: ice, water, vapor, but 4 phases. This is the 4th phase. We call it EZ water. And I put it here between the ice and the water because of 2 reasons. First of all, the structure of EZ, remember that hexagonal honeycomb motif, also appears in ice. The 2 structures are not the same, but they're similar. And we found experimentally that if you want to freeze water, in other words, if you think you're going from here to here, you're not. You actually must go through the EZ phase in order to get to ice. And when you melt the ice, you must pass through the EZ phase in order to get to water. So this is a necessary intermediate. And this intermediate, as I describe in my latest book, a slide of which I'll show you in a moment, I describe the experiments that show that you actually need to go through this stage. It explains many strange features that appear when you think that you go directly from here to here.
If you have to go to EZ before you get to ice, how does that work if the formation of ice is happening in, let's say, a hydrophobic substance, where EZ needs hydrophilic surface to create that separation? So
all you need, it's not only the hydrophilic surface that creates EZ. There are other things that create EZ that I haven't talked about. And all you need is just a little bit of EZ to start with. And here's what happens. It's hard without the slides. I'm not sure if I convinced, but basically we found that you have a little bit of EZ and you reduce the temperature, and this EZ starts growing, and it grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger as you reduce the temperature, you see. Right. And suddenly something happens. Actually, protons rush in, and therefore the EZ then converts as the protons rush in. The rushing in of protons turns the EZ into ice. This is how ice forms. And there's more in the book that I can't, without the slides and such. So that was a great question. And okay. So there are 4 phases, not the 3 that we learned about. And this is a necessary condition to explain many features. And all of this has broad implications. Maybe perhaps the most central of all the implications is that water is absorbing infrared energy all the time and doing interesting things as it gets absorbed. And I presented some. And one is in the biological situation. It helps drive blood flow in your cardiovascular system and in mine, and also in other cells. And in terms of chemistry, so we read the chemistry book, and we read about reactions that occur in water. And sometimes the interpretations are straightforward. Other times you have to scratch your head a little bit. However, the interpretations are based on, shall we say, old material. There's nothing in those interpretations that deal with the separation of charge that we've been talking about, nothing that deals with the infrared energy that's being absorbed, nothing to do with separation of charge or any of these features. And so if what I've told you today, if it's true, or at least some of it is true, then many of those interpretations will need to be revised from the ground up. Weather. I don't know about you, but sometimes I look to the forecast to find out what's going on the next day, and often it's not so bad. It's getting better.
I used to be a meteorologist in college. I realized that basically you just come on TV and say you got a 50-50 chance of rain, guys.
And why should it be 50-50? If you understand the principles of weather.
Because this should work normally. It's a joke, but they very often wrong weather people are wrong. That was
of course
joke.
They're wrong. And why are they wrong? See, if you really understand weather, you should be able to make better predictions. And a lot of people would like to know if they should bring their umbrella or not to work. So, and I think here's the deal, that if you know, because you were in the field, you talk about pressure and temperature, right? Mm-hmm. Low pressure system coming in, high pressure ridge, and the temperature is XYZ, whatever. And from that, and from historical patterns, you can kind of say, well, 50-50 chance, right? But it should be higher than 50-50. Should be, and sometimes it is. But what's missing from all of this is electrical charge. And we know that at least some clouds, you can see that they discharge electrically. So you know that at least some clouds are charged. It turns out studies from 60, 70 years ago by prominent atmospheric scientists, all clouds are charged. And by the way, they're negatively charged, and the Earth is negatively charged. And therefore, the clouds float. Going back to the second slide or first slide or whatever, and I think that's the reason. But if the clouds contain electrical charge, then you'd think that atmospheric scientists would take into account the charge and how much charge and what that charge is doing. So I would predict that in the future, that if atmospheric scientists take into account electrical charge, they can understand more about weather. And indeed, my next book, which deals with the unsuspectedly profound role of electrical charge throughout nature, spends 4 chapters discussing weather. What the atmospheric scientists still don't understand is how water evaporates and how clouds form.
My question when I asked you at the end after I let the whole video go is I wonder if it's going to stimulate your mind to add another chapter into your book.
Okay, let's talk about that. Okay, I'm almost done. It's been a long.
No rush. I'm just excited. This is the best conversation ever.
But I have some stuff I need to do.
Okay.
Okay, this has been fun for me. And okay, in terms of health, we talked about easy water and the need for your cells to be filled with easy water. If you want to store food, it's nice to know. If you want to dehydrate the food, it's nice to know something about evaporation. It's nice to know something about freezing, right? And as I said, what I presented to you has direct implication into all of that. And then everybody wants to know about practical application. I've mentioned filtration, I've mentioned desalination, and also getting electricity out of water, completely renewable, converting basically the sun's energy into electrical energy. So those are, among the broad implications. And before I go, I want to mention the Institute for Venture Science. It's something that we developed, and the idea is to fund promising ideas that may bring scientific revolutions. We've had very few scientific revolutions in the past decades. We've had many, many technological revolutions like Zoom that allows us to communicate this way. But when it comes down to science, you have to really rack your brain to think of scientific breakthroughs like, for example, the splitting of the atom or the genetic code. I mean, if you ask yourself, give me some examples of some recent scientific revolutions of that magnitude, it's not so easy. And I think it has to do with the way the scientific enterprise is now structured. It doesn't allow for revolutionary ideas to see the light of day. So we've created this institute, and we've identified from 200 pre-proposals, we've identified 5 exciting projects, which if funded, and if they produce the results that we anticipate that they may produce, will shake the earth. And so, of course, we're looking for donors. This is not the kind of thing that would be funded by governments of sort, but private donors. So anybody who would be interested, please contact me. And finally, much of what I present to you appear in this book. So this is the latest book. And of course, it's accessible where everything is accessible. It's actually rather cheap.
And on Audible. Audible is phenomenal. I've read this book and listened to it twice. It is a phenomenal book. Highly recommend it. I will put it in the description down below.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I haven't listened to the Audible version. It does come with figures somehow, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Audible doesn't, but that's why I bought the physical book as well. So I'm listening and reading at the same time and following along.
Okay. Well, the figures are great. They're done by my son, who's a professional artist, actually a sculptor, who's now unfortunately busy remodeling his home. So the next 2 books that are almost finished, as far as I'm concerned, still need some figures, and I'm hopeful that Ethan will proceed. He's a wonderful, wonderful artist, and many people have commented on the art that's inside the book, and I'm proud of my son. And we've been working together for some years, and we've never had a fight.
Was that the painting? Did he do that painting at the very beginning of this?
Well, it's taken from a source and modified in some way. Yeah, it's his interpretation with permission. But if you look in, there are cartoons and such that make the book sort of friendly to the reader who is not an expert reader. And I got to say that the comments on Amazon and such, I feel really gratified. We put a lot of work into it, and the comments I think reflect that. So I'm hopeful that the 2 books that are coming will be equally well received. Anyway, yeah.
Well, maybe we can have you back on the channel to talk about those books on a shorter, 10-minute, 20-minute release about what the books are all about, and get you a pre-release on those books.
That would be exciting. Thank you so much. It'll probably be 6 to 9 months or something like that, but yeah, would be great. Okay. So I think this is the place to end, I guess. And thank you for the invitation, and it's been fun. Rarely I do a lot of presentations, interviews, but rarely do I find a group of interviewers like 2 of you who are just so full of such interesting questions. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Jared, I appreciate you so much. Dave. And guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe only on Perfect Gardens TV.
They said they are natural terpenes, right?
Yeah, they said they're botanical food grade terpenes.
Okay, so it sounds like they're potentially synthetic terpenes.
They don't use synthetic. They don't say synthetic, but that's what my feeling was as well.